Welcome to the Resonance Podcast. My name is Swarit.
And my name is Jack.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of taxation and how the government actually uses taxes in the current economy. So, before we actually get down to the pros and cons, taxation is basically the amount levied on a business or an individual. This is done by the government, and this is not something that's optional. This is compulsory, and I believe it is a crime if you don't pay your taxable amount. And within taxation, you've got two forms. So you've got direct and indirect taxation.
Yeah, and I think in this episode we'll probably talk about taxes in the UK, but some of the concepts that I'll talk about, like the political side, can be applied in the US, where they're a lot less on taxes.
Yeah, that is true. So for anyone who doesn't know how taxation basically works, so it's split into four parts, which is called like personal allowances, basic rate, your higher rate, and then you've got your additional rates. So how it works is the first £12,570 you earn, you don't get taxed at all. Then from that, if you earn between 12,571 to 50,270, you get taxed 20%. Then again, so these two are the personal allowance and the basic rate. On that, now you've got the higher rate. The higher rate is, the actual figures are 50,271 and 125,140. So on that amount, you get taxed 40%, which is quite higher. And suppose someone's really high paid and have a high salary, anything over 125,140, anything over that is 45% tax.
And I think some people don't realise how high these taxes are.
Yeah.
Like, it comes as quite a surprise to a lot of people.
Yeah. So these are the actual breakdowns of how taxation works. Then you have like your different types of taxation systems. So the system I just talked about was the UK's taxation system. That taxation system is called progressive taxes. So the three different types of taxation systems. You have progressive, which I just mentioned. You got your regressive taxation and flat taxation.
So we've got to explain some of these. Progressive taxation is when you tax higher earning individuals but less on lower income individuals. Regressive taxation is when you're going to tax higher for lower earning individuals but less from higher incomes. And a flat tax is when you tax everyone the same, which is the simplest. And I think you look at progressive taxation and you automatically think, oh, right, that's a good thing. But actually, if you're looking at it from like a conservative point of view, you're penalising success. And one of the arguments that conservatives might say, if I'm looking at the political side, is that, these wealthy people, they invest more into the country, so by taxing them, you're leaving less growth in the country.
Yeah. So again, this is like a debate where should you be taxed more if you earn more? Because obviously, if you're earning more, you're probably earning. You're more hardworking. I'm not saying like someone who earns less is less hardworking, but if someone's more hardworking, then you're taking a chunk of their hard-earned money, and then it's just going to the government.
Yeah, I think also like maybe conservatives might make the distinction of someone who's inherited a lot of that money versus someone who's actually worked really hard to get to that salary, and it can feel like quite unfair.
Yeah. So if I go back to the progressive taxing, so as I said, the UK uses this form of taxation, and as Jack said and explained, the taxation amount increases with your salary. So this idea of taxation system, this is like the principle of diminishing marginal utility. So it's like you're asking the higher earners to contribute more towards the government and the government revenue. But obviously it also has its positives, because like many countries do use this form of taxation. That's like USA, Germany, France, many others. So one of the main benefits of this is that it's used to reduce income inequality.
Yeah. So if I talk a little bit more about regressive taxation,
Yeah.
again, that's a taxing on lower earning individuals, and we see this kind of in taxes on like alcohol and tobacco,
Yeah.
where it could be where the government, by taxing those goods, it could be seen as acting on the health of citizens. If I look at the political side, liberals, when they don't want government intervention, could seen as people not rational to make that decision themselves. I think many people are capable of deciding whether they want to buy alcohol or not. There's an argument that, do you choose to be addicted? I don't know, but that's a liberal from a political perspective would say that.
Yeah. So if I just to make it clear, no country actually uses regressive taxation as one of their main taxation system methods, but in some arguments you could say, if I'm pretty sure most of you've heard of VAT. So some people, you can see VAT as a source of like regressive taxation, because you get taxed 20% of anything you buy, and that 20%, it doesn't change. Suppose you earn 10k a year, or if you're earning 100k, it's still 20%. So that's like a small example of regressive taxation. So if now we move on to a third type, you've got your flat taxation. So that's like Jack said, everyone gets taxed the same amount. So if it's like 15%, no matter how much you earn, it's still going to be 15%. So this is, I would say, this is not extremely popular, but some European countries do use it. Like you've got Hungary and Bulgaria, and I think it was like back in like the 2000s, Russia also used it, but now they're shifting towards a more progressive taxation system.
So if I talk a little bit about flat taxation, I think a big conservative argument towards this is that everyone should be treated equally.
Yeah.
And I think you could say by taxing richer people more, by regressive taxation, you're actually being classist.
Yeah.
So do you want me to talk a bit more about flat tax?
If I just build up on your point, you said tax everyone the same.
Yeah.
It's a conservative idea.
Yeah.
And it's also like you're taxing the rich so much. You're like 40-45% you're taxing them, and even after that, the things you pay for from your taxes, like public goods. So if anyone doesn't know what public goods are, that's healthcare. Those are free goods that are available to anyone. So like education, healthcare, small things like even street lights. Those are forms of public goods, and those all come out of your taxes. So you basically pay for all of those. And taxation can be seen as one of the main reasons for taxation is public goods. So you've got two different properties of public goods. You've got...
Sorry, before we move on to that,
yeah.
Can I quickly go over flat taxation?
Yeah.
Because there's a really an example of flat tax in the UK. It was during the 1980s under Margaret Thatcher, where local councils could decide the amount of flat tax in their borough, their council area. Now the thing is, a lot of these councils actually set council tax to the highest, because a lot of Labour-run councils and all councils needed to fund these public goods. Just a bit of contextual information, it's not necessarily directly related to the economic side, but a lot of Labour councils were accused of raising the flat tax rate so high to fund the public services, which ended up just putting more spending on taxpayers.
Oh, so I'm assuming you would have caused many arguments and riots.
It did, there was riots about it, and allegedly these Labour councils were doing this to put the blame on the Conservative government at the time. Whether that's true, I think the Conservative councils also did the same. But that's just a nice example of flat tax in the UK, which I think isn't talked about as much.
This was a good point, because somewhere I'm assuming back in, like, if you go back into like the 1900s or the 1800s, I'm assuming the main form of taxation they used were flat taxes, and
I think so,
and like if it's not flat, it's probably regressive, because I'm doubting progressive taxation was used as much back in the early times, because it was seen anyone who, like, your social status was your money. If you have money, then you basically decide what happens around your county or
I mean,
town.
Certainly the poor could be argued as being treated more unfairly back in those times. You had the idea of trickle-down economics, which Reagan had mentioned during the 80s as well, but trickle-down economics is basically the idea that when the rich get richer, so do the poor. So,
yeah. So this was a bit about flat taxes. So if I move back to the point where I made earlier, so about the public good. So you've got two different types of, you've got two properties of public goods.
Mm-hmm.
So either it can be non-excludable or non-rival.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone's from like an economic background, they'll probably understand what they mean. So non-excludable is when you can't stop people from using it. It's like street lights. Anyone who passes down the street can use it. And non-rival is when, suppose I use something, it doesn't prevent you from also using it. So like multiple users. So again, like if I go back to street lights, that's a good example of it. Or streets, because the government basically has made them up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think you also got another point that taxation could be seen as playing a central role in correcting any market failure.
Yeah.
When, if free markets fail to allocate resources efficiently, we have taxation on petrol and diesel.
Yeah.
Some conservatives would say that statement, that the idea that taxation corrects market failure, is inherently biased or wrong, because you're basically assuming that the government can fix problems better than markets. Conservatives would probably say that a lot of government intervention actually creates more inefficiencies. You've got bureaucracy, you've got misallocation of funds. So that's an argument.
Yeah. So if I go back to your being taxed on petrol and diesel.
Yeah.
So if you actually look at a real life example of this, like, suppose someone buys a car. Cars are really popular. I'm assuming most of the people own a car, and from that you've got. So suppose I want to buy a car. I don't necessarily think of, I'm going to buy a car, I'll put petrol in it, petrol or diesel, and that's going to later on cause damages to the environment. That's not the first thing people think of when buying a new car. So when people drive cars, they essentially create negative externalities. So like negative externalities are basically like air pollution, congestion, climate change, all of that. Anything that negatively impacts the environment is considered as a negative externality. So again, the problem is that the driver, they just think about the private cost, maintaining the car, running the car, putting petrol in the car. So those are the private costs, but they don't think about the social costs. Yeah.
If we're going to talk about kind of the government taxes, one of the reasons why government uses tax, as you mentioned previously, is to fund public goods.
Yeah.
But there is a problem when we look at, and that is the idea that, if I produce something, why would I make something if someone's going to consume it without paying for it? I'm just going to lose money from that. So this is why governments, when they introduce public goods, they fund them by taxation. And this is also linked to the free rider problem.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to expand on?
Yeah. So the free rider problem is, it's like, so suppose I buy French fries. So this is like a vague example, but suppose I buy French fries, and I come here, and then maybe you see them, and you're like, maybe I can have one or two bites of it. So maybe you can have a few fries. So you take a few fries, but you don't pay me. I don't ask for it. I don't ask for payment, but you don't pay me. So the idea of the free rider problem is that you've got taxpayers, they're paying their taxes, But then again, you've got some people who don't pay for the taxes, and you can't necessarily prevent them from using public goods.
But I think the key thing here is that it has to be involuntary. Like, if I was hypothetically asking you for a French fry, you would give that over voluntarily. But if I'm like, I don't know, at the street light, for example, and I'm not paying tax, well, you can't just shut it off.
You can't prevent that from happening. So it's basically when people benefit from something without paying for it. So this is one of the examples. And necessarily, suppose someone hasn't paid for it, like you said. They don't have the choice, like you said. It's not voluntary. It just happens. You can't switch off a street light, or if you don't pay your taxes and you're walking on a road, you can't just not walk on the road because it's not the place. I mean, again, if you think, suppose like the government doesn't provide any of this, and taxations have been dropped to almost zero or nothing, and who's going to be providing for this? So the first people who are going to be providing is the firms. Private firms, obviously, because you see a gap in the market. Streetlights, if I take back, and the government's not providing streetlights, who's going to provide it? So it's going to be private firms.
I mean, do you want to expand or?
So if I go back, it's going to be private firms, and suppose like Jack pays to use them, or suppose I don't. Maybe where I live outside, or maybe in some way, then they're just going to shut the streetlights off. Because obviously, no profit or low profit is just bad for them.
I think the idea that it's kind of impossible for private firms to set up public infrastructure, I think is not entirely correct. Because the UK is, if you're a pragmatic conservative, the UK is very varied. So we have a way where a private company could set up a road or set up streetlights, and we have toll roads. We have an example of this, the M6 toll road. It's privately owned, and it actually successfully raises money for a lot of infrastructure. But the key thing here is that
something like that's not possible with like streetlights, because everyone uses it.
You could have maybe streetlights on the other side of the toll road if cars come through. So I think an important thing here is a conservative, you need to take a pragmatic approach.
That is true.
Not all roads have to be privately owned. You'd be passing through a private checkpoint every time. That would not be good. But radical conservatives or free market fundamentalists would say that we do need everything to be privately owned.
So one of the greatest problems people actually go against taxation is the NHS. The NHS is one of the best examples of a public good. It's free because it comes out of your taxes, but at a certain point, suppose you're earning, like, if I go back to the starting point I said about breaking out the taxation, suppose I'm earning 12k a year. I don't have to pay taxes, but I get to use the NHS for free. But suppose I'm earning like more than 100k a year. That's like 45% taxed on my salary. And again, I get the same standard, the quality standard of the NHS. There's no discrimination. If you're earning less, you get worse treatment. And in that, it's like you're paying such a high amount, but the services are there. They're just bare minimum. There's nothing extraordinary on it. If I like pull out some stats, it's as of January 2026, 72 million people, they're on the NHS waiting list in England. That's a large amount, and I'm assuming most of those people in those 72 million pay their taxes, and probably high taxes, which is a large amount, and most of them have been waiting for like 18 months. This is like one of the ongoing issues that you have with the NHS.
I think the NHS is a tricky one because it has a lot of problems, but I think it's one of the biggest sources of Britain's pride, like national
Yeah,
pride.
yeah.
Like the NHS
Free healthcare.
yeah, it's like a British institution, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I want to talk about actually, private healthcare intervention in the NHS.
Yeah.
So we've got a statistic. The private sector at the moment has delivered 6.15 million NHS-funded appointments, tests, and operations in the year ending October 2025.
Okay. Yeah.
So that shows that the private sector is doing a quite a big brunt of work.
Yeah.
And I think, again, a pragmatic approach is probably needed when we're looking at private healthcare. But in cases where the NHS fails and is not up to scratch, we can introduce some private healthcare.
Yeah. It's again, do you want to keep the NHS public or do you want to privatize it? Because again, if you privatize NHS, I'm assuming your taxes would go down.
Yeah.
Because less money would have to be contributed.
Yeah.
But again, then you're gonna have to pay for private healthcare. If someone earns 12K a year, maybe they cannot afford private healthcare.
And just an extra point, controversial issue, but immigration can put a lot of pressure on public services.
Yeah, because more people are coming in.
Yeah.
You have to accommodate for more people.
Yeah, and that could be okay if they are, like a net benefit, or they're paying enough taxes to develop the NHS. But if they're not, then the NHS won't cope.
So another stat I have is, if you know about A&E, so what they do is they target a 4-hour window. So suppose it's 6 o'clock right now. I go to the A&E. The target window is within 4 hours, so till 10 o'clock. I should get some form of treatment, or I should have been seen. So that window, it's fallen to 56%. So just a bit over 50% of the patients get the treatment within 4 hours. And the NHS standard that they've set is 95%. So it's a big gap. And obviously you made the point of immigration and how the people are immigrating, and maybe NHS doesn't have those kind of resources. So maybe sometimes you feel maybe a harsher approach where, okay, these people have immigrated, but how many of them are actually in the 20 to 40% bracket? Because if many of them are they don't pay taxes because they earn 12K a year, that can become a serious problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think obviously there are different arguments. The left wing, more socialist people would say that this is a result of a lack of funding from governments. The Conservatives might say, well, it's not because of that. It's actually because funding is just not working. I do want to look at this is a kind of separate point, but the free market Conservatives, technically probably wouldn't agree with the NHS because it's a socialist institution.
Yeah.
But they do acknowledge that the NHS is such a source of national pride. I think I read a statistic that 54% of British people list the NHS as the best thing about being British.
Oh.
So an example of when a Conservative government was very pragmatic about this was during Thatcher. So Thatcher sold off every industry, privatised everything. You had the coal miner strikes. But she famously said, the NHS is safe in our hands. Because she knew that the NHS was such a part of UK society that it was necessary to keep. I mean, if she abolished the NHS, I think Thatcher would have gone.
Yeah.
And part of being Conservative is retaining British identity, retaining a sense of national pride.
So over the years, what actually has happened is NHS, it's actually embedded within UK culture in some sense, because over the many years it's been NHS is free, healthcare is free, and it's also one point where the UK, I know it's not the best, but if you look at the total distribution of incomes and the response within healthcare, I believe UK does have one of the best ones.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Okay, suppose you're earning 200k or more than that. maybe you're not as satisfied with the NHS, but maybe if someone's earning the bare minimum, maybe that's a huge positive for them. So that was like the NHS part, where maybe some people like it, they don't like it. So another part of taxation actually is the administrative cost. So if you don't know that so you've got the HMRC, those are the people responsible for the taxation. So all the money goes to them. They're like part of the government. They enforce the taxes, and within HMRC you've got, I believe it's around 60,000 workers. So again, you think, okay, 60,000 employed people, how are they getting paid? Now, their salaries come out of our taxes. That's the same for any public good provider. So the law enforcement, firefighters, anyone working in the healthcare, all of that also comes out of our taxes. So if you're paying so much just to pay their salaries, is it really worth it? Because 60,000 employees, with the growth of AI, can AI not do some part of that and maybe cut that cost down to maybe 25,000 workers? So that's like a question you ask all the time.
So I think you're inevitably going to have government costs and things, but I think a lot of conservatives would say, I mean, in the US we have DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. They're really slashing down on all these government departments. I don't know if we need to do something as drastic in the UK, but I think I read something that private businesses actually bear the brunt of all of the administration and compliance costs, because it's quite complicated for businesses to manage this, all of these tax codes and everything. So a solution which we have seen is just to simplify the tax code, so that businesses are not constantly, trying to figure this out and trying to pay so much resources. And simplifying the tax code will also save money for the HMRC, because they don't have to spend so much time, just doing cognitive tasks of figuring out documents.
So linking back to that point you just made, Jack, it's £20,000, I believe. No. I think I've gotten the stat mixed up. It's
20 billion.
20 billion pounds a year. That amount is just it's an estimate. Sometimes it might go up, sometimes it might go down.
So I don't know if I mentioned it, but private businesses pay, I think, £15.4 billion annually in tax costs. I don't know if that's directly related to the statistic you made, but it's just interesting.
It's similar, but not completely the same. Because 20 billion, what I'm saying is, it's just the estimate cost of the workers, how much you have to pay. And not only for the workers, where do they work? In buildings. What are they working on? Laptops. Where's all of this money coming from? So if you roughly around in 1 year, £20 billion out of all the taxpayers and how much they pay taxes in, all of that, 20 billion is just for the administrative cost. Again, linking back to Jack's point about the productive levels of shops, and as you said, 15.4 billion, I think was the statistic you said.
That's the amount they pay.
Yeah, the amount they pay. So, if a business pays an amount that's this high to an extent, do they really want to innovate and make new products?
Yeah.
Because if this amount of money is going just directly to the government, then what's the point of making profit? Because I'm assuming maybe 50% of that profit goes straight to the government through taxation.
Especially if it changes all the time.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much money is being paid to the government, you're going to have to constantly keep up with it, and it doesn't create a good environment for entrepreneurs and small business owners if they have to do all of this.
Yeah. And again, if I go back to the workers, I know I'm bringing back to the workers' point, 60,000 workers, and they don't get paid. It's not like they get paid 10 10 grand a year. So the range it ranges from 20 grand to 80 grand, and it can, like, if someone's like higher in seniority and someone more skilled, they'll obviously get paid more. So can maybe the lower end who are earning 20k or 30k, can they actually be replaced by AI?
Yeah, I think that's a controversial thing to say. Many people agree with it.
Yeah, many won't. It's just an idea.
Yeah, I guess
that's possible.
I guess the argument would be that, if AI is taking over all of the menial jobs, then people are not going to be employed anymore, and some people maybe don't know how to do these high skilled jobs. That's another argument, but it's related.
So this is just one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'll say one thing, kind of from a political perspective in general on taxation. A lot of conservatives view taxation, hardline conservatives view, or liberals mostly, view taxation as theft. Why should I give my hard-earned money away?
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
So that's like rounding you off. Maybe conservatives, if it's more siding with the rich.
Well, yeah, and also kind of a sense of individual responsibility, I think.
Yeah.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But many conservatives now are very pragmatic. They would say that, yes, a child who's in a very poor earning family, they didn't choose to be in that situation.
Yeah.
So we should, use taxes to help them.
Yeah.
I think there are problems, but if you're pragmatic about it, I think that's the best way.
So that was the end of today's episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye.